These are comfortably the worst Adidas Predator that you can go out and buy in 2025. I mean, they're better than they were last time round, but they're still pretty awful. This is the Adidas Predator Pro, which is the first tier takedown model, coming in at €160, and it shares an awful lot of similarities with the elite level model, and is somehow still terrible. The elite level model I love. This has the same striking elements, and I do mean the same. This is the Strike Skin SL rubber fins that feel exactly the same as what you get on the elite level model. They're just slightly different in terms of coloring, but performance wise they are identical. In terms of the upper, this is a hybrid touch upper. Now there's a caveat to that, but we'll get to it. This also the hybrid touch upper. So you're starting to think, well, I'm getting all of these awesome things that are on the Elite for like €100 less. We've got the tongue, which is a very premium feeling material and similar enough to what you're getting on the Elite. You just don't get the SL rubber fins on the tongue. That's just a graphic. But again, surely this is premium. We might even be talking about something as good as this. This is the F50 Messi Pro, which is mind-blowingly good. We're not talking about anything that good. We'll go back to the upper, which, as I said, is hybrid touch and is pretty soft. Like, can't really complain too much about that. However, it's not the same as what you're going to get here, mainly because there seems to be an additional level of foam that's been added between this hybrid touch top material and the liner itself just feels a little bit more substantial. I really wish I could get inside the boot to really show you what that looks like, but I do not have a Noah Kavanagh-esque probe lens, so I can't do that. But essentially what that does is it makes the whole upper feel a lot more substantial, a lot thicker, and your touch and feel on the ball is just far less natural, it's far less in contact. You don't feel like you've got quite as much feedback on the ball. Everything is just dampened, and not in a plush padded kind of way, in just a dead, I can't really get enough feel for the ball kind of way. But it's absolutely not a disaster, and because of how soft it is, this definitely could be something that appeals to an awful lot of people, especially when you consider the price that I mentioned earlier and how good these look. I mean, we have to reference the fact that they're really not too far away from the elite level model in terms of their overall presentation. They just look really, really nice, especially in this classic Predator black, white and red colorway, this being the Moments pack. Speaking of which, you don't get any of the little call outs that you get on the elite level Moments pack, which has all of the different dates and times for where goals were scored by Beckham and Zidane. It doesn't have any of that, but again, much cheaper boot, so I'm not worried about that at all. The biggest problem with the upper comes to that added foam and that more substantial liner, maybe even a slightly thicker hybrid touch, and how that affects the fit. So let's talk about the fit. The issue here is that the whole boot feels very shallow. You very much feel like you are sat up into a level of the boot that just isn't right. Never does it feel particularly comfortable. And I think this is going to be an issue for the majority of people, irrespective of your particular foot shape. It is just a shallow fitting boot. This particularly becomes a problem when we start to get to that added foam, thicker liner that I've been talking about, because what it does is it reduces the volume that is available through the boot, especially through this toe box area just here. So if we imagine we've got reduced volume and a shallow fit, we're really starting to reduce the overall volume that we've got to fit our feet into this boot, which just makes the whole thing feel a little bit cramped and pretty uncomfortable. The shape just isn't right and the build just doesn't work. This isn't helped by the heel area. So the heel area has a lot of padding. So let's take a look at that. You can see just how substantial the padding is through the heel. Like, let's compare it to what you get on the elite level model. So what this is also doing is it's just pushing your heel further off the back of the boot. So you're sitting in here, which is pushing you further towards the end of the boot, which already has quite a low pinch toe box in a similar way to what the Elite has. It's not quite as much, but it still has quite a pinch, quite a low volume toe box, made even worse by the things that I'm just talking about. Then you're pushing yourself all the way into it. So it's just making everything worse. We'll talk about the heel in just a second, but it's almost like each individual element of this boot just leads to creating a level of you just feeling a bit uncomfortable. None of it ever really makes you feel like you can really get into the boot, mold it, feel good in it. And like I say, I do think that this is an overall boot design issue and is going to be a problem for the majority of foot types. So I think what this shows us is something I've been saying for a while, that you can have the coolest SL rubber fins, the nicest, softest upper, but if all of the elements put together don't sit on a boot that fits your foot well or fits feet well, it's going to be bad no matter what else you do. And the fit here lets the whole boot down. If that hasn't scared you off with the fit and you just want to know what size to buy, I have got these in a US 8, UK 7.5, which would be the same as I have in the Elite level boots, and is actually half a size bigger than what I would wear in a large majority of Adidas boots. The F50 Elite, the F50 Messi Elite, for example, I would wear both of those in a US 7.5, UK 7. Slightly bigger in these. If you have a wider foot and you're considering these, I would honestly say probably don't. I don't think there's enough in here and enough flexibility for a wider foot. They are slightly wider than the Elite level model, but with all that extra kind of padding and such, it just doesn't feel like there is any extra room in there. If anything, I feel more suffocated in this boot than I would in this boot, despite it just being naturally a bit wider. Let's talk about the heel. It is, as I said, very padded. You stand off the heel quite a lot around your Achilles area. It just pushes you forwards. The heel itself is also quite flat, and without that padding would be incredibly uncomfortable, but I still find it can push your heel into a slightly awkward position where you're pushing part of your Achilles forwards, but there's no padding in this area here, so you want to sit back into there. So it's not a disaster here, but it's not, I think for 160 euros, it needs to be better than this. I think Adidas do better than this with their other boots, and they just have not got this Predator right. I will make a damning statement on this right now, which is that I think if you're not going to go out and buy the Elite level model, because, you know, maybe you don't have the funds for that, I completely understand. You still want a Predator though, don't buy these. Go and buy the League level Predator instead. You get the same looks and it doesn't really have the fit issue here. I would rank the League above these in terms of just what you get for your money, and I would avoid these altogether. The lockdown in the rest of the boot, again, the fit and shape affect the lockdown because I don't feel like I can really adjust the boot around my foot to get me properly locked down into the boot because the fit, the shape, the shallowness of the whole boot is just off. So the lockdown also doesn't feel good. It would only be average at best anyway, just the way that it's built, the fold over tongue. It's not really designed to be a super locked in boot. It will do the job. You're not going to come flying out of it at any given point. But it's another area, another element where I think the overall shallow nature and fit of the boot just makes it worse. So lockdown is probably not as good as you want for 160 euros. Let's say that. Without being awful, it's still not as good as you'd want for 160 euros. Outsole. This is fine. Again, you could make an argument that this is maybe not as good as you'd want for 160 euros. It's actually exactly the same as what you get on the league level model. So at that league price point, this is a pretty good outsole. It's fairly stable through the midfoot. You have, it's a bit stiff all the way through, but it's not terrible. You get a reasonable amount of responsiveness, flexibility. It's not a bad outsole. It's nowhere near as good as what you get on the Elite, but that's fine. The problem being that it's good on the league level boot. It's maybe underwhelming on a boot twice the price of the league. So again, do with that what you will. The stud pattern itself is exactly the same as the Elite level model, although I do think the studs are a little bit shorter, which actually makes these boots as a whole a little bit better for an AG surface. I still wouldn't recommend them. It's not a bad option. It's not as bad, shall we say, as the Elite level model, and you might indeed get away with it on a nice AG pitch, even if it's not my personal recommendation. Just when you thought I was done ragging on the boots, we're going to talk about weight, which isn't something I do a lot on the channel because honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. However, we do have to consider that these are 258 grams, which is actually quite heavy. So if you are somebody looking for a lightweight boot, another reason to avoid those. It's not a disaster, it's not the end of the world, but it is definitely on the heavier side and enough that you would notice it being that little bit heavier on feet. We can compare it to the Messi F50 Pro, which is the F50 Messi takedown, and that comes in at 199 grams, which is actually lighter than the Elite level Pred. It's just the standard, the variation in standard is so vast here. This is absolutely fantastic. This is going to be in conversations for Boot of the Year at the end of 2025. This is awful and will be in conversations for my worst Boot of the Year at the end of 2025. This is a takedown model at the same price as this, with a build and a material and a fit that is so far beyond what you're going to get from this that it's baffling to me that they've both come out from the same company. If you have 160 euros to spend, you do not want to buy this, and if you need an Adidas boot, buy this instead. This is one of the best takedown models on the market, and if you want to check my full review on this, you want to do so by clicking this video right here.